Welcome back to the Dragon Den. My loyal Dragon Knights, King of Dragons 5000 is back with another action figure review. Today we'll be taking a look at the Hiya Toys Kong Skull Island, the Skulldevil. And before we have a look at the figure, let's take a moment to thank today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Gundamit.com. Action figures, model kits, and other collectibles, check out Gundamit.com with a link in the description. And so here we have the Skulldevil pose and out of the packaging. Now unfortunately he doesn't come with any accessories. But never fear, Hiya has done what they usually do and stacked this guy full of details. So with that out of the way, let's actually get a closer look at the Skulldevil's details. And so here we have a closer look at the Skulldevil, and Hiya Toys has done a phenomenal job here. Just like with the rest of the Monsterverse line, the Skulldevil is packed full of impressive details. First, having a look at the Skulldevil's head, it is just amazing with detail and paint. I love the white paint that goes on the front of his face, making it appear like he has a skull for a face. The look is very clean here on the Skulldevil, and I love the fact that you can see his yellow eyes behind the pseudo eyes. Along his face you can see all this impressive sculpt work showing off how much detail Hiya Toys has put into the Skulldevil. And if you open up his mouth, there's a lot of detail here on the Skulldevil's mouth, and the sculpt work inside is very clean. The inside of the Skulldevil's mouth is made of rubber, which does make the two joints hinge perfectly together. Moving on to the neck, the Skulldevil has this really nice leathery hide neck, which looks like a Komodo dragon's neck. The texture on his body is amazing, where you can see a lot of scales that are on the Skulldevil. It is done in this really nice charcoal color, and it's really rich with dark, and the lighter shade on his spine looks really good. The dark color scheme does go throughout the rest of his body, and you can see that lighter shade is going up his back and goes all the way down to his tail. The underside of the Skulldevil is nicely detailed as well, where you can see his rib cage, which looks really good. And the underside of his belly is done in this really nice olive color and does a really good job transitioning from that olive to the charcoal all the way to the gray on the top of his spine. The Skulldevil's forelimbs are done amazingly in this really rich charcoal color, and I love the way it transitions from that dark color to the lighter shade of gray down to his feet. At the elbows you can see that the Skulldevil does have this spine protrusion coming out of his elbow, which looks amazing and is done in this really nice white. And the back of the Skulldevil's forelimb is done in that same white, which mirrors its face perfectly. The Skulldevil does have 4 toes on his feet, and they're done amazing, and you can see the claws protruding from each of his toes. Finally, taking a look at the Skulldevil's tail, it is done really well, and it continues that impressive sculpt work that we saw on his body. The osteoderms continue nicely from his spine all the way down to his tail. Now unfortunately the paint work does not continue onto his tail. There is some subtle painting on his tail, and it looks really good. However, I would have loved to see a little more paint on his tail. And because his tail is made of rubber, it does lose some of the details as you go from the base of the tail all the way down to the tip. And the tip of the Skulldevil's tail is done with this really nice serration, and it looks amazing, and it gets darker as you go to the tip. So overall, the detailing here on the Skulldevil is very impressive and is what you've come to expect out of Hiya Toys. So with his details out of the way, let's get the Skulldevil compared to our usual suspects. Here we have the Skulldevil posed next to a Marvel Legends Cyclops and DC Multiverse Superman, Mattel's WWE Elite Collection and Mezco's 112 Collective Popeye the Sailor Man, the Lightning Collection White Ranger, and the Star Wars Black Series Mandalorian. And finally we have the Skulldevil posed next to the Hiya Toys Kong and Hiya Toys Godzilla. So overall, the Skulldevil isn't quite in scale with the rest of the Monsterverse line, and if he was, he's a really big skullcrawler. But the oversized skullcrawler doesn't bother me one bit, as he looks impressive next to Kong. So with the comparisons out of the way, let's have a look at the Skulldevil's articulation. The Skulldevil's jaws do hinge open and closed. He has a double ball joint in the head and a double ball joint in the neck. His forelimbs do go out to the side and do a full 360. He has a swivel at his bicep or his calf, and he has a double hinge in his elbow or his knee. Ball hinge at the wrist or his ankle. A double ball joint in his midsection and a double ball joint near the base of his tail. Finally, he has a double ball joint at the base of his tail and a really sturdy wireframe for the rest of his tail. So overall, an interesting set of articulation for a very interesting creature. The Skulldevil moves exactly as you would expect a Skullcrawler to, and it works perfectly here. So with everything said and done about the Skulldevil, let's actually get him posed for my final thoughts. And so here we have the Hiya Toys Skulldevil pose for my final thoughts, and overall, once again, Hiya Toys has done an amazing job with a monsterverse creature. The Skulldevil, also known as Ramarak, was a very key component in this Kong Skull Island movie. Ramarak was a skullcrawler that killed Kong's family, so it was only natural that Hiya Toys would make Ramarak in action figure form. The paint and details here on the Skulldevil are very impressive, and I really like what Hiya Toys has done with this Titan. For being an interesting creature, the articulation here actually works perfectly, with his forelimbs having just the right amount of articulation to get him posed. It was really good for Hiya Toys to go back to the Kong movie and give us a Skullcrawler, because that's something we really haven't seen out of too many toy lines. The articulation here on Ramarak works perfectly, and I think the only contention that I really have is he could have used more articulation in his neck. As far as his wireframe tail goes, I'm perfectly okay with it, and I'm really not seeing any issues with it, and I have been putting it through the paces here. Although if you do get too crazy with the tail, there's a chance you might break the wire or even tear the rubber, so do use caution when posing his tail. But overall, he's a fantastic figure, and I'm really happy to finally have a Skullcrawler in our Monsterverse collection. At the time I'm making this video, the Skulldevil will start to hit stores in a couple weeks, but I did get mine from Gundammit.com. If you're in the market for the Skulldevil, you can pick him up on Gundammit.com and using code word DRAGON to earn extra points on your purchase. So before we wrap up this video, let's take a moment to thank today's sponsor, Gundammit.com. Gundammit.com has a huge selection of first-party and third-party action figures, model kits, and other collectibles. Show your support for the Dragon Den by using code word DRAGON and earn extra points on every purchase. With that being said, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and check out all my other Hiya Toys videos. If you're in a position to help out the Dragon Den, definitely check out my Patreon for early access videos and exclusive content. Check out my Instagram account for new and exciting action figure photos, videos, recent pickups, latest prints, and as always, ring that bell so you never miss another video. And until next time, my fellow Dragonites, coming from the Dragon Den, I am King of Dragons 5000, reminding you to redesign, rebuild, and reclaim. I'll see you next time.